have fun, and when you're done, just turn that off and shut the viewfinder and all the power goes off.
Cool.
Let me get out of your way.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Hentges.
Thank you. Hey, is your friend not here?
He told me that he's probably gonna have to be in class this morning,
Oh,
so it's
okay.
just you and I. But that's perfectly fine. I'm
Okay.
excited.
All right.
So I have a questionnaire. Well, actually, first of all, thank you so much for coming. I
Well,
really appreciate
you're
this.
welcome. I think these things are important to teach our youth that the sacrifices that veterans have made, and I didn't talk about it, and I didn't let myself be interviewed for the first 20 or 25 years.
Oh, wow.
But then I finally realized that I needed to do that because I had promised a good friend that died with me that I'd make sure he never got forgotten, and if I don't talk about it, then he does get forgotten, so.
That's true. Well, this is great then, thank you. I have a questionnaire that was provided to me. So it has just questions about your service, about your career. I'll probably follow that pretty closely. So first of all, for the camera, can you tell us your last name and your first name and your middle initial, and then spell your last name?
Hentges, Donald L. Hentges.
Thank you. Okay, what year were you born?
1948.
Where did you live when you became a part of the military?
Just west of Jefferson City on Old Omen Road,
That's awesome.
right next to where you live.
Yes, sir. It's a great place.
Yeah,
What branch of the service were you a part of?
U.S. Army.
How did you get into the service? Were you a volunteer or did you get drafted?
I was drafted in 1966 when I graduated. Vietnam was just really getting going, so you basically had a choice of joining for 3 or 4 years or being drafted for 2. And when you're 18 years old, never been away from home, 2 years looks a lot better than 4, so I chose to draft.
Yeah, so you were 18 years old.
Yep.
Wow. So this was your first world experience, sort of.
I had never been out of the state of Missouri prior to that.
That's incredible.
All of our kids, if you were caught on camera or by somebody propping a door open to the outside, you will get 5 days detention. That's how important it is for us to make sure those doors are shut. Have a great day. Thank you.
Sorry for this brief interlude, interviewers. That was the announcements. Okay. So where was your basic training?
Fort Leonard Wood, just south of here.
Just south of here. So when you were drafted, was there a period of time between your draft and your training?
Yeah, I think probably a month maybe.
A month.
I don't remember exactly, but I got the draft notice and I come home from work one day and it was sitting on the kitchen table and I knew exactly what it was without reading it, so.
Yeah.
But then I was drafted, went to St. Louis, I think on the 5th of December. Spent a couple days there for testing and whatnot, and then was sent to Fort Leonard Wood.
Mm-hmm. So this was, you said you knew right what it was when you saw it, so I'm guessing a lot of your friends and peers were being drafted.
Yes, my older brother Dennis had graduated. We had graduated from high school together. He got drafted right after we graduated, like 2 months after we graduated, and I got drafted about a year later.
A year later, so what did you do then for that year?
Well, him and I were renting a farm together, and we gave that, I finished off that year, and then we gave that farm up, and because I figured I would not make it through the next year without getting drafted, but so I just worked part-time at the Payway Feed store and odd jobs, just whatever I could find, haul hay and whatever. So just waiting for it to happen, and when I come home and it said on there greetings and from Uncle Sam, and I knew exactly what it was, so I didn't have to.
Oh, goodness.
All I did is opened it up, looked at the date I had to report.
Yeah. Oh, wow. So were you scared or? did you feel?
I don't know if I was really scared at that time. I figured I was gonna go to Vietnam. I was nervous, more about just leaving home and all of that. I didn't really get scared till later on when I got out of advanced training and had orders to go to Vietnam. Then I got scared.
Yeah. Yeah, wow. Oh, man. Oh. So, I think we're jumping the gun a little bit.
Yeah,
I think we'll
probably.
get there. But first of all, what was your basic training like?
Very, very cold. You know, Missouri in January and December, or January and February, that's when I took my basic. And it was very hectic. I mean, they treated us rough. I mean, and I know why they did it. It was to get us in shape and to teach us to follow orders. I mean, but it was very, very cold, long days. I mean, 4 o'clock in the morning, we had to fall out for reveille, and then we'd go out and, you know, we'd do calisthenics and whatever exercises and run, and then we'd have breakfast, and then we'd train all day, and at night we shined our boots and got ready for the next day, but it was long, long days.
Long days. So it was 2 months?
Yep, a little over, I think it's about 10 weeks altogether.
10 weeks. Ooh. Ooh. Do you think that prepared you adequately for the next step?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I mean, we were in very good physical shape and mentally. I mean, some people couldn't take it. I mean, I know why they treated us like they did, to get us in that condition and to identify the ones that couldn't take the stress.
Yeah, and what did they do with the people that couldn't?
Oh, I mean, some of them were actually put out of the military if they had physical problems that they couldn't handle, or they were given jobs, you know, advanced training was in something else that wasn't so strenuous. So.
That's interesting. What was your job when you began military service? Like, well, so I guess where did they put you in the military when you got out of basic?
I was assigned to infantry, and I was I was assigned as a mortarman, which is part of an infantry unit, but I was sent from there then to Fort Polk, Louisiana, which was my infantry training. And it was supposed to be as close to Vietnam in geography, terrain, and weather conditions as we could get in the United States, because it was you know, down in Louisiana, so it was swampy, a lot of dense forest and stuff like that. Warmer than, you know, of course it was springtime, so it wasn't real hot, but it was muggy, humidity, that type of thing.
Mm-hmm. And how long were you there?
I was there then for about, it was supposed to be like a 2.5 to 3 month training, but there were so many casualties in Vietnam that they were rushing us through it. We trained weekends. We even trained on Easter Sunday.
Oh my goodness.
And we finished it in about probably 9 or 10 weeks.
Whoa.
And then I was sent home for leave, and then had orders to go to Vietnam.
Okay. What does a mortarman do? So what is that?
A mortarman is kind of, they stay back at the rear of the infantry, and they are, I don't know if you ever seen them where they drop this around in this little tube. That's what a mortar is.
Okay.
I was trained on that, but I never went to that.
Oh really?
They told us when we started it that only the very best in the mortars would stay in mortars, because most of them would go to infantry. So I thought, well, I'll be the best. So I worked really hard. And out of 256 people, I finished second.
Oh wow.
But it didn't do no good. I still went in the infantry when I got to Vietnam. So
Okay.
that's where they needed us. So.
Wow. That's really cool. So in the infantry, does that mean that you are sort of like on the ground?
Yep. When I got over there, I was assigned to the 101st Airborne Division as a rifleman. So I was given an M16 rifle, and we were out, taken out in the jungle, and we were replacements. We didn't go over as a unit. We went over, and you know, all of us that had orders, we get over there, and then they say, okay, you're going to 101st Airborne, you, you're going to 1st Infantry, and wherever, you know, whatever unit. And so we were taken out to joined our unit out in the field, and that's when I was really scared.
Yeah.
And so I was given an M16 rifle, and
Were you taught how to operate it?
oh yeah, we were taught all of that in Fort Polk, Louisiana, how to operate all the different weapons. Then when we got over there, then I carried the M16 for probably about 2 months, month and a half. I was walk point a lot, which that's the first person that goes through the jungle, and it's a very, very strenuous and very nerve-wracking job, because you're the first one they're going to shoot at. You're the first one that's going to trip the booby traps or step on the mines, and you're only supposed to walk every 3 days, one day out of 3. But for some reason I ended up doing it more than that, and it was really eating on my nerves. Then on July 13th of 1968, we were in a firefight, and our machine gunner and assistant gunner were killed. And they were right beside me, so I was the machine gunner at that point. I took over the machine gun, and then I kept doing that for 5 months, 6 months. But and I wanted, you know, I took over the machine gun because I wouldn't have to walk point. I didn't want to have to walk point anymore.
Yeah.
I couldn't handle it. And I felt safer with the machine gun. But the ironic thing is I'd never trained on that weapon because I had KP. When we were in training, if we had KP was kitchen duty, and if you drew KP, I mean, they didn't have civilians doing it. They took you out of your training. So I missed that day of training.
Oh no.
And so I had to have a buddy of mine that we went through training with. I told him afterward, I said, you got to teach me all about this thing. Teach me how to clean it, take it apart, fix it, whatever. I said, because I missed that day. So, and then I did. I carried the machine gun till November, early November of 1968. And then our squad leader was, his year was up. He had a year tour. And his tour was up, and he was transferring back to the United States. So I was promoted to squad leader. So then I gave up the machine gun and took an M16 back. And then I did that for about 3 weeks, and then I was wounded, and then I came home. So.
Okay. Wow. So what was life like in Vietnam? I mean, that's sort of a broad question, but.
It's hard to imagine for somebody that, and for us in the infantry, we had a base camp, but out of 7 months, we only was back there maybe 3 different times.
Oh, really?
And we were just out in the jungle. We lived out in the jungle. Sometimes we would go 5 days without any resupply because we didn't want the enemy to know where we were. So we had to carry enough water, enough food, and everything, and just kind of wandered around out there in the jungle looking for the enemy, and you know, we're search and destroy. Yeah. And it was very, very hot. You know, we lived off of sea rations, which was little meals you'd get in a can, and we lived off of those. You never got a shower. You wore your clothes till they rotted off, and it would, during the rainy season, it was rained every day. And then during the dry season, it never rained. And it was very, very hot. Humidity was awful. And you know, I weighed a little over 200 pounds now. When I come out of Vietnam, I weighed 142.
Oh, wow.
So I mean, there was no fat. It was all lean. You you never really got any sleep because you had to be on guard duty at night. You'd catch an hour here, an hour there, a couple hours. But we always set up in two-man positions at night, and one of us had to be awake all the time. And so you just never got any good sleep. And it was the swamps, you know, we walked around through the rice paddies and the swamps, and the leeches were awful. They'd get on you. Some of them were so big they'd wrap all the way around your leg.
Oh.
And we'd have to pick the leeches off each other and stuff like that. I mean, it was very, it was miserable.
Yeah.
The water was, you know, during the dry season there wasn't any water around, except if you came to a river or something. So they'd give us, before we left, we'd supposed to carry enough water to last us 5 days, which I would limit myself to 2 quarts a day, because that's all I could carry. That's 2.5 gallons of water when you leave. And the meals, they would give us 3 meals a day, but you couldn't carry it all, so we would pick out the good and take that and just wandered around out there and tried not to give our position away. You know, if we got into a firefight or something and used a lot of ammunition, then we would have to call in for resupply and have them drop ammunition, so then we gave ourselves away at that point. But
Yeah.
we just chopped our way through the jungle and
Yeah.
lived out there like a bunch of hermits, you know.
Wow.
It was, I think so often, boy, just a glass of ice water, you know, the water you drank was slop. I mean, it was warm out of an old plastic container. You know, to have ice in your water, I think of that every time I put ice in. When I hit that ice refrigerator and that ice thing and them ice cubes, I think of it all the time, how ice cubes, how nice they are.
Yeah. Wow. So I mean, it must be sort of hard to talk to other Americans about it because we have such comfortable lives, so we just have no idea what it can be like to live in a different way.
That's why it really irks me when I see people that don't appreciate what we have in this country. So many people don't. You know, they're protesting and complaining and don't salute the flag or pledge allegiance to the flag, and to me that's not acceptable. So.
I agree. Oh man. So, is there anything else you have in mind at this present time, or could I ask you more questions about Vietnam?
You can ask away, you know.
Okay.
I'll try to answer them.
Okay. How many men were in your, what would you call it? Would you call it a battalion or?
We were a company.
A company.
Full strength, I think, was supposed to be like around 200, 240, but
Whoa.
we never were at full strength. We were down, at one time, we was down to less than 50% strength, you know, from casualties and people that rotated out. I mean, that was the good thing about Vietnam is you had an end in sight. You had a year, and then you knew you got to go home. I mean, they could extend you, and they did occasionally, but you know, unlike World War II, you know, those guys were there till the war was over, so they never had a chance to, you know, they didn't have an end in sight, you know, a light at the end of the tunnel. Well, we had that. You know, I made it. Once I got past, early on, I didn't think there was no way I would live through the year, and I really felt that. But after I got past 6 months, I thought, man, I might just make it. You know, I thought, I got a good chance of making it. So you start to count down then, but I made it about a month after that, and then I got wounded. So when I got wounded, we were out on patrol, trying to find a place. We'd come to a river. We'd been out that day, and we were on top of a hill, and we could look down on this river, and my platoon, the company was divided into 4 platoons, and my platoon leader told me, he said, to take 2 guys and go down there and find a place to cross the river. And it wasn't a big river, kind of like the Morrill maybe, you know, just a small river. So I went down there and, well, there was no place to cross right there. The banks were too steep. And so we went down the river a ways and we found a place to cross the river. And we radioed back that we had found a place and where it was. And our lieutenant told us to go ahead and cross the other side and see what it looks like. So we did. And when we got on the other side, he said, go just a little ways and see if you can see anything or what it looks like, which we probably shouldn't have done that because we was too far away from our unit. And I even questioned him on that. I said, we're pretty far away. And he said, well, just go a little ways. So he said, just go about 100 meters, which is 100 yards. So we started out and there was 3 of us and we were in a line and we were separated by probably twice the length of this room apart. So you never walk real close together, so that they started shooting at you. They couldn't get all of you at one time, or if somebody stepped on a mine or a booby trap, that it would get everybody. Mm-hmm. But anyway, the lead guy, he stepped on tripped a booby trap of some kind, I'm sure is what happened. I didn't see it or anything, but the second guy, the guy in front of me, I happened to be looking right at him when it went off, and it went off right in front of him. And his name was Willie McFay, and he was carrying the radio also, and I was the third person. Well, I got a little bit of shrapnel in my legs from that, but not enough to disable me. Mm-hmm. And the lead guy also got a little bit in his back. Mm-hmm. But Willie, he was severely wounded, and he had the radio, and the radio was busted because it got hit too. So we were trying to call for help, trying to patch Willie up enough to keep him alive till the medevac could get there. But we weren't able to. He passed away. But then we had no way of calling for help and nothing we could do, so we just kind of set up a little, one of us looking one way and one looking the other way, each side of Willie, and trying to protect ourselves from the enemy, hoping they wouldn't find us before our guys found us. Mm-hmm. Luckily, one of our guys thought he said he thought he heard an explosion, and then of course they couldn't reach us on the radio, so they knew something was wrong. So they came looking for us, and as they found us, then I don't know really what happened then. I don't know whether the enemy found us at the same time or whether somebody tripped another booby trap or what happened, but there was another big explosion. That's when I got hurt the most. I lost the sight of my eye. I got a piece of shrapnel in my eye. That's why this eye always kind of wanders off. But I still got my eye, but I don't have any sight in it. Mm-hmm. And then I had a lot of shrapnel wounds in my legs and pretty much all over. And I really didn't think I was hit in the eye. I thought it was just blood because I had been hit up here in the scalp and the blood was running down my face, and mm-hmm. I thought it was just blood in my eye because it didn't hurt. Mm-hmm. But it turned out it was shrapnel. But anyway, that was like 10 o'clock in the morning, best I can remember. But they couldn't get us out of there because the enemy they were firing mortars at us, and they shot down the medevac that came to get us out. It was shot down, so they had to call in the artillery and fighter jets and everything. And I can remember a little of this, but not a lot of it because I was in and out of consciousness. Mm-hmm. But anyway, they finally got us out of there, I think about 4 o'clock that afternoon.
Oh my goodness, so
and
6 hours in that condition.
We were taken back to a MASH unit, an Army hospital in Da Nang. And then I was told then they were going to take me out to a ship offshore because I had the eye injury. Mm-hmm. And I told them, I didn't think I had eye injury, but they said, well, it don't matter, we got too many here, we got more than we can handle here anyway, we're going to send you out there. And I was arguing with them, stupid me, they're getting me out of here, shut up. But they took me out to that ship, and I remember a general telling me, he said, he said, don't worry about anything. He said, you're gonna go into surgery for your eye. And he said, the war's over for you. Don't worry about anything.
Wow.
And so then I spent a week on that ship, you know, after surgery. And then I was taken to Yokohama, Japan, to an army hospital, and I spent about a month there. I got there on Thanksgiving Day of 1968. Then I came home in December of 19. I was brought back to the United States. We were sent to Brooke Medical Center in San Antonio.
Oh, wow.
And then from there, then I got to come home at Christmas for leave. I got home on Christmas Eve for leave, but then I went back there after Christmas and was there until March.
You went back to Vietnam?
No, back to Brooke Medical Center,
Oh,
Texas.
Okay.
No, I couldn't go back to Vietnam. At the time, I wanted to. I don't know. I thought I wanted to go back and finish my year.
Oh.
I thought I owed that to the rest of my men. You know, I wanted to finish that year with them and come back and party with them. But after I got to thinking about that, I thought, no, that's stupid. I don't want to go back. I'm out of there.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so that's basically what I did. And then I was released from the hospital in March, and then I was assigned to a unit in Fort Hood, Texas, which we did nothing but just sit around. And finally in June, they let me out of the Army and gave me a medical retirement and sent me home.
Wow. So then you were how old?
When I got back from Vietnam, I still wasn't 21 years old.
Wow.
I turned 21 when I was in the hospital in San Antonio. So I couldn't come home and drink a beer.
As much as you probably wanted to.
Yeah, you know, and that really bothered me because there was one guy that I went to school with that managed to dodge the draft. You know, he faked for some medical things and didn't go in the draft, and he was younger than I was.
Oh my goodness.
And he was across from church there in St. Martin's. I'm sure your dad or grandpa's told you that used to be a little beer joint,
Yeah.
grocery store, whatnot. And when I was 16 years old, I could sit in there and drink a beer because I grew up there. The owners knew us, but it changed hands while I was in Vietnam. And I come back from Vietnam, and I told my older brother Dennis. He said, "What do you want to do?" This was Christmas night. I said, "I want to go up to Melcher's, that's what it was called, and have a beer." So I walked in there and they wouldn't serve me. And this guy that I knew was younger than I was at Dodger Draft was sitting there drinking a beer. And that really bothered me. And I left, never went back in there
Oh no.
until it was a bank. Then I went back in.
Probably had to at that point.
But
Oh.
that was just, you know, at the time, you know, like I said earlier, I never talked about anything. I didn't even tell my family about any of it until I started. After 9/11 is when I really started. I don't know if you know Chris Jarbo. He was a counselor over at JC. And he got me started coming over there talking to the kids about the price of freedom and what it's like to be a veteran, that type of thing. And he got me involved and got me talking about it, and that's helped me.
Yeah. Oh.
But my friend that was killed that day, I promised him that day that he wouldn't be forgotten. And after, we got to be really good friends over there. He was only over there a couple months when he got killed. But I was able, last year I met his wife. He was married and had 2 kids, and I was able to find her, with the internet and stuff. Now you can find people.
Yeah.
And was able to talk to her. She was 18 years old, or 22 years old when he got killed. And never remarried, but so my wife and I, we went to Texas last year, met her.
Wow, what was that like?
Very emotional for both of us, all of us.
Sure. Oh.
But her littlest daughter, who was 5 years old when Willie got killed, it happened to be her birthday when we were down. She was 54 years old. And we spent the weekend visiting with them and went to the cemetery and visited Willie's grave and stuff like that. It was very emotional, but I think it was good for both of us. I met Willie's younger brother. The fact is, I talked to him on the phone yesterday. So we've talked quite a bit since we met, and met his daughter and one of his granddaughters and 3 of his great-grandchildren. So,
Oh my goodness.
quite a deal.
Yeah.
And his oldest daughter had passed away. She had pancreatic cancer.
Oh.
That's how I was able to find her, through a search on the guy down there was trying to find pictures of all the people that were from Austin area that were killed in Vietnam, and he Googled Willie's name and found my name because I had mentioned Willie's name in a newspaper interview several years ago here in Jeff City, and he found my name and he got a hold of me, and then when Willie's daughter died, it came up, Willie as the deceased father, and he was able to get her name and stuff, and I wrote her a letter and we were able to hook up. So it's quite an experience.
I'm sure, that's incredible.
Willie and I had exchanged contact information over there, but when we went out on that recon mission that day, we left our packs back with our unit because we were going to come back to them, and that's where everything you owned was in your pack. You had had a little dry bag, kept stuff in, kept dry, letters from home, your writing material and stuff, and I had a little book that I kept addresses and phone numbers of people I wanted to stay in contact with, and I lost that. It never caught up to me. So all I knew is he was from Texas. I couldn't remember where. But so it was quite an experience.
Wow.
For all of us.
I'm sure. Had they ever heard I'm sure they'd never talked to anybody who was there.
No, and they didn't really know how he had died, because he
wow.
never told them. He was out in the jungle, and he had always told his wife he was back in the rear in supply. And for every 10 people that was over there was really only one of them in the infantry. The other 9 were in support functions, clerical positions, supply, stuff back in the rear that really, it was dangerous, but it wasn't that dangerous. You weren't under fire all the time and that type of thing. So when he got killed, and all they were told was he was killed by a bomb explosion. So they didn't know whether, the enemy had shelled the base camp or what, they didn't, and they didn't really know how he died. And one of the questions his brother had was, did we get his body back? Was he blown to pieces, and we not got him back? And I said, no. I said, because the coffin couldn't be opened. It took a couple weeks for him to get back here. And so, but I said, no, his body was intact. He was a lot of injuries, but he wasn't blown to pieces. So, I think that was a big relief for them to know that. Something I never really thought about, and the people that brought them the information, they didn't really know
This true story.
the true story of what happened to him. So his little girl, she was 5 years old at the time, and she said her memory of him being in the military was the day they come to the door to tell him that he had been killed. She seen the Army uniforms, and she thought her daddy was coming home and couldn't understand why he wasn't with them. So I think it was she told my wife before we left, she said, I feel like I finally know my daddy now. So that made me feel good, after all those years, to be able to put them at ease a little bit.
Give them some clarity.
Yeah, and his brother told me that yesterday. He said, finally we feel like there is some closure to it. He told me, I wished we could have talked to you before my parents died, because his parents are dead now, and Willie's parents, and said they never really knew any of this. And he said it was really hard for them, so. And I said, well, I said, you don't know how much I wished I could have found you 50 years ago, but it will be 50 years this fall, but it happened, so.
Whoa.
So time flies.
Yeah, definitely. So how did you become friends with him then?
He joined our unit as a replacement, and I don't know, I guess I remembered how scared I was that first day, and I could see how scared he was. I don't know, I guess it's, you know, sometimes when you meet people, you instantly become friends, and we did. I mean, I talked to him that evening and tried to settle him down. I wasn't the squad leader yet or anything, I was just one of the guys. But we sat there and talked, and I don't know, I guess we were a lot different, but we were a lot the same too. I mean, he was Afro-American, you know, which back then, you know, there wasn't, all the civil rights stuff was going on, but he was, I don't know, he was come from a poor background, farm boy. I don't know, we just kind of hit it off. And we talked a lot, joked around a lot, and I don't know, I told people maybe we become friends because he just laughed at my stupid jokes, I don't know, but we just got to be friends, and the longer he was over there, the closer we got. Fact is, the day he got killed, I didn't pick him to go with me because we'd been out on an ambush patrol the night before, and I told him, you know, why don't you stay back and get a little rest? He said, no, I want to go with you. And I said, and he kept saying, he said, you need me. And I said, I'm the best person you got and all that, you know. And I said, yeah, I know you are, but I said, I want you to get some rest. He said, no. He said, I'm going. I said, all right, let's go. So I told the other guy to stay and took him, and he got killed. So, but you know, that was God's will.
Yeah.
And but he just was a good friend. He was one of those guys that would always do more than you ask him to do, and I guess that was part of the reason why we become. I grew up that way, and so we just got closer as time went, and like I said, I only really knew him two and a half months probably, but
in that wartime scenario, you get
yeah,
close.
you know, in some ways you tried not to get too close to people because they could be gone tomorrow. But you had to be close to somebody. You had to have somebody to talk to, and we were just that for each other, and so he was a good guy. But
That's really, really cool. Wow. What other engagements do you remember from your time in Vietnam?
well, obviously the day our machine gunner and assistant gunner got killed, that really sticks in my mind
Yeah.
because, you know, I was scared to death yet. Hadn't really been, you know, we'd been in a few skirmishes, but that day was a really bad one. And one of the guys that was killed was the guy that I went over with. I didn't go through training with him. I didn't know him, but we were on the same plane going over, and we met, and we were in the orientation, a couple days of orientation after we got there. We got, you know, we're there, and here's a guy that went over with me, and all of a sudden he's dead. You know, that really put everything in perspective for me, because I thought, you know, that could have been me.
Yeah, and you said he was right next to you.
Yeah, they were in a position right, a gunner was about where that chair is maybe, and he was right beside the gunner, and I was right beside them. And they were both killed. And the machine gunner is when you get in a fight, it's a very They say that the average lifespan of a machine gunner is 13 seconds after the firefight starts, because that's what the enemy wants. They want to take out that machine gunner. And I don't know, that's what everybody always said. I don't know. I carried it for 5 months. I mean, a lot of fights, and always managed to come out of it. So
Sounds like God's will to me.
God looks after you.
Oh, yeah.
I always tell kids that, you know, that when you're in Vietnam, when you're in a war situation, you get pretty close to God. And you know, I told God if He'd ever get me out of there, I'd never complain about anything, but I probably complained as much as everybody else. But I still think I have a better appreciation for what we have in life than a lot of people do. I consider myself very, very lucky. A lot of people didn't survive it, you know, and you know, 58,000 plus were killed over there.
Wow.
Probably 2.5 million went over there. You know, but like I said earlier, a lot of people you talk to, they enjoyed Vietnam. Hey, it was a blast. You didn't have all the regulations you had in the military back here in the States. They did their job and drank beer and partied the rest of the time. And but it wasn't like that for where we were. So, you know, that was. But there again, you know, you make your choices. My dad tried to talk me into. He had spent 4.5 years in the infantry in World War II.
Oh, really?
And he tried to talk me into enlisting. He said, get in the Air Force. He said, they got a dry place to sleep at night. And he said, don't join the Navy, because he had went over on a troop ship and he was sick the whole 30 days over there. He said, stay out of the Navy. He said, he hated the Navy, hated being on that boat. But he said, join the Air Force. And I said, no, I was going to take my chances. I didn't want to be away from home for 4 years. But hindsight, you know, 4 years ain't very long, and you get to see the world. But when you're 18 years old, 4 years seems like a long time.
Yeah.
Especially to be away from home.
Mm-hmm.
You know, nowadays, you know, people look at it differently. You know, people go away to college and they're gone anyway. But to me, I couldn't fathom being away from home, you know, because I'd never been away from home. But so I took my chances, and I think if I had it to do over, I'd probably do it the same way.
Okay.
But I could have made life easier for myself probably if I'd have joined. But some of the people that joined, there were people in our outfit that had enlisted, and enlisted for specific things, but they ended up, they put you where they needed you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of the, you know, I said something earlier about how mean they treated us in basic training and stuff. That was to see who could take it, who could handle the stress and the pressure. And those are the people they put in the infantry too, because you had to be able to handle that situation. And some people couldn't.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not their fault, they just can't.
Yeah.
And we had people in our unit that cracked under the pressure. You know, we had, when I was a machine gunner, we had a guy that was, you have a machine gunner, and then you have an assistant gunner, and you have an ammo bearer. And everybody carries some ammo, and it's the ammo bearers, he carries primarily, that's all he carries. He don't carry grenades or anything like that. But then everybody else has some ammo for the machine gun too, and his job is to go around and gather that up, crawl around while you're in a firefight.
Mm.
And the assistant gunner's job is to hook all those belts together and to keep ammunition to the gunner. And so we were in a firefight and we were running low on ammunition, and I asked the assistant gunner, I said, where's that Indian? He was an Indian. And I said, where's he at? I said, we need ammo. He said, I don't know. I said, well, go find him. So he calls back, and the guy, he just literally cracked up. He was sitting back behind in a bomb crater, just scared to death. He just couldn't take it anymore. And after the firefight, I told the lieutenant what had happened, and they sent him back to the rear, and I never saw him again. I don't know what. I guess he had to have some psychiatric therapy, and who knows? I mean, he might have completely flipped. But there were people that couldn't handle it, and it was an unfortunate thing. But it's not boring what they show on TV. It's not glory. It's hell.
Oh my goodness, so is there anybody that wanted to die at that point?
There were some people that did some stupid things that I wondered sometimes whether there was a lot of people got on marijuana and stuff over there. I've seen people smoking that. I mean, the Vietnamese people, they lived on that stuff, the opium, but some of our guys, they got to smoking it. I've seen what it did to them. Why would anybody? It makes you do things that you wouldn't have done if you hadn't. You think you're invincible, and so I don't know. It's just some people try that, and maybe that was their way of coping. They couldn't handle it otherwise.
Yeah. But then you put a weapon in somebody's hand.
Yeah. And I think that's why, that a lot of people came back home and couldn't forget it. It's affected a lot of people, it still affects people. A friend of mine, he retired about 6 years ago, and 2 weeks after he retired, he shot himself. A Vietnam veteran. I guess it'd been eating at him all those years. And once he didn't have his job anymore, he got to thinking too much about it, and they found him sitting beside his truck with all his memorabilia from Vietnam beside him. And so
That was 6 weeks ago?
that was 6 years ago.
Oh, 6 years ago.
Yeah.
Oh.
He had just retired, and he was retired maybe 2 or 3 weeks. Then that last person I would have thought, he was always seeming happy-go-lucky to me, but I had another friend that all he could do was talk about it all the time. He lived it, and he told me one time, he said that he was gonna end it all when his daughter graduated from high school. The day she graduated, he got killed in a car wreck. Now, I think he did it intentionally.
Really?
I mean, I'll always think that. Maybe he didn't. He went off the road and hit a tree. So.
Yeah, so that, yeah.
But the Agent Orange, you hear a lot about that. They sprayed all those jungles and stuff, or a lot of the jungles with that stuff. And
What is it?
it's a chemical, kind of like your dad uses to kill brush and stuff, only this stuff they sprayed it on the foliage. And back then they didn't realize it was a dangerous chemical, but they sprayed so much of it that you hear now of people dying from Agent Orange exposure. It's cancer from that stuff.
Oh, wow.
And some of the rivers over there were plumb yellow from the stuff. It was it was an orange chemical. It would wash into those rivers. We'd swim across those rivers. So I don't know. I hope I never get cancer, but I always worry about it.
Yeah.
So
That's
those.
legitimate concern.
There's a lot of lasting effects from war. That and this, how much you all study the Vietnam War in your history classes and stuff, but this country wasn't popular. The war was not popular, and a lot of the people come home and were treated bad. They were called baby killers. They were spit on, and that wasn't the case here in Central Missouri. It wasn't for me anyway. I came home, but a lot of the people that came back from over there they were told when they landed in California to not leave the airport in military clothes, you know, buy civilian clothes and change before you leave the airport. Because there was protesters outside and stuff, and of course I came home in pajamas. I mean, I didn't even have any clothes, and when I got back to the States, and then I got a uniform and come home, and I was proud of my uniform. I wore my uniform to midnight mass on Christmas Eve. I'd just gotten home a few hours before that, but I was proud of it. But in some parts of the country, and I think that's why a lot of Vietnam veterans are still bitter because of the way they were treated when they come home. I mean, if this country learned anything from that, it's, you know, regardless of what you think of the war, don't take it out on the warrior, you know, don't take it out on the soldiers.
Of course.
Some of the wars that are fought are not popular, but the guys doing it are doing it because that's what they're told to do.
They have to.
So,
Yeah.
but, anything else? Any more questions
Sure.
on your? I'm doing all talking. You need
Oh.
to ask questions.
Oh, they don't want to hear me. They want to hear you. Are there, okay, what do you remember most about your time in service? Like you said, you mentioned ice cubes and thinking about ice cubes all the time and being grateful for what we have. But is there anything, is that it? Or is there, I'm sure there's more that really sticks out.
Oh, just being homesick. I was homesick a lot. You know, the communications wasn't good. You know, you got letters. Sometimes, you know, my mom, I think she wrote a letter every day, or somebody in the family did. Dad didn't near as often, but my brothers or sisters or her mom. But she wrote about every day. But a lot of times we were out on those missions where we didn't want to give, so we wouldn't get our mail. Only time we got mail was when they brought out a resupply chopper to bring us food and water and ammunition. And if there was room, then they brought mail. If there wasn't, we didn't get any mail. And the same with mailing letters back. I would write a letter, but it might be 4 or 5 days before I had a chance to mail it. And then it took a couple weeks. You know, most of the time it was at least 2 weeks before, from the time you wrote a letter till the time somebody got it back here, and vice versa. So the news, you know, nowadays they can email and Skype and all of that and stay in instant contact with them. I guess that's good in some ways, but in some ways it's not good, because if you don't hear from somebody, then you start thinking something's wrong. Or over there, you know, you wrote a letter and you mailed it, you might not get an answer for a month, so you just never worried, or I guess you worried, but you didn't worry all the time when you didn't hear something.
Yeah.
And so once in a while we'd get a package, you know, but most of the time they were so old. Mom would send me Kool-Aid and stuff like that so I could doctor my water up and make it taste good, but she'd always send cookies and stuff like that, but most of the time you got them, they were so stale and it was nothing but crumbs, but it was good.
You still ate it?
Yeah. Mom mailed me a package in September of 1968, and before it got there, she mailed it, I think, well, it might have been October. Anyway, I didn't get it, so I'd gotten wounded and went and started, so the package kept following me. It went to that ship, hospital ship, then it went to the hospital in Yokohama, Japan, then it went to San Antonio, Texas. By then before it got to me there, I'd been transferred to Fort Hood. Before it got to me there, I got out of the Army. So she mailed it in October of 1968. I got it at home in September of 1969. It had been almost a year before it caught up to me. It was kind of stale.
Kind of stale.
But I'd always have Mom send Heinz 57 sauce so I could put on my sea rations and make them taste a little better. And of course she'd send Kool-Aid and stuff like that to doctor up my water, make it taste a little better. But other than that, the things I remember about being over there was was the heat and how miserable we were. You know, it was so hot and muggy, and you were soaking wet, and the god awful mosquitoes. They had a lot of mosquitoes, huge ones, and
That sounds
and them
awful.
leeches. The leeches, I cringe every time I think about them things.
Oh.
How you wouldn't even feel them, you know, they'd be on you, and you'd get out of those swamps, but sometimes we waded around in water that was up to our necks, and we weren't in them, we were in the rice paddies. And at one time, we spent 17 days in a row where we never got out of the water. Sometimes it was just ankle deep, sometimes it was this deep.
Oh.
And you hung on a tree limb at night to keep your head above water, and we had jungle rot so bad where the fungus on their skin, just eat your skin off your legs. And
Oh.
they took us out to the beach, out to the ocean, put us in the salt water. And
Is that supposed to kill them?
it kind of got that off of there. In fact, it's one of the pictures I have with Willie, the best picture I have of him, with him. We were out in the ocean, and I show it to kids sometimes, and I said, don't look much like we were in the war, but we were there to get the jungle rot off of our legs.
Oh my
But
goodness.
that stuff was awful. And your clothes, you literally wore them till they rotted off of you. They bring us new socks quite often.
To keep your feet dry.
Yeah, just so we'd have, because if your feet are sore, it's hard to
Hard to do anything.
do anything. And we did a lot of air assaults where they would come in with the helicopters and pick us up and fly us to a different area. After I was over there a few months, we became an air cav unit, which meant they would come and pick us up, and it was good if you was in a fight. It was good because they could get you help quicker. But the bad side of it was you might be in a nice quiet area today and thinking you were going to have an easy day, and all of a sudden somebody else is in trouble, and then they come and get you and fly you into that area. And I remember one time as we were coming into land, they were shooting at us, and I was standing out on the running board of the helicopter, and I thought we were lower to the ground, and I jumped because the bullets were hitting the helicopter, and I thought I was safer jumping.
Oh no.
And we were higher than I thought, and I hit the mud, and I stuck in the mud up to my waist. Hurt my back. My back was sore for a long time after that.
Ow.
But you couldn't really, nothing you could do about it but keep going.
Oh my
And
goodness.
but that was some of the stupid things we did. Some of the things I remember, but
How high do you think you were?
we were probably 20 feet off the ground.
Gosh.
But I thought we were safer. I thought I was safer jumping because I just knew that helicopter was going to blow up.
Did it blow up?
Nope, it managed. We all got off, and it took off. I mean, a lot of times they never even really landed. They just got kind of skimmed the ground, and you jumped off, and they kept going. And but
Wow.
I loved flying in helicopters. So we flew a lot in helicopters.
Were they safe?
Oh, safer than, at one time they asked me to go to the helicopter school and be a pilot. And this was, while I was in training before I went over there. And at that time, I thought, all you ever heard about is all of them that got shot down, so I thought, I ain't doing that. Everyone that goes up gets shot down in my mind, but it wasn't that way. There were a lot of helicopters over there, and a lot of them did get shot down, but a lot of them, majority of them didn't. So, but I always thought that's something I would have liked to have done, but I think God probably put me where I needed to be. So
Yeah.
I'm alive, so that's the main thing.
Yeah, you were. Oh, I'm so glad. Wow. My goodness. Oh, here's a good one. what qualities did you believe you carried from the military to where you are today?
I think